Hi everyone! In this video, I'll be showing you how to create a composite by using smart objects. I'll show you different techniques to use to blend your added elements seamlessly into your base image. Let's get started. I'll be using butterflies as my added elements. For presentation purposes, I'll be teaching you techniques on a solid background. Then I'll show you how I use these techniques to add the butterflies to my base photograph. I've added a solid blue background layer to allow you to see all of the edges of the butterflies. To add elements from one image to another image, make sure that you have your base image open and your image with your added elements. You're going to click on the layer that you would like to add to your base image and drag it to the tab of your base image. Once that image shows up on your screen, drag your layer on top of it and then you can let go. Your new layer now appears at the top of your layers palette. You can now convert that layer to a smart object and resize it to fit into your scene. The first thing we'll want to do is to convert the butterfly layers into smart objects. This will allow us to resize and edit the butterfly layers without losing any information. We'll also be able to go back to any of the edits we've made and tweak the changes. To convert a layer into a smart object, simply right-click and select Convert to Smart Object. You'll then see a little icon in the corner of the layer's image. If you need to convert your smart object back into a normal layer, just Control or right-click on that layer and select Convert to Layers. Now we're going to transform our butterfly to make it the size and angle that we want. Make sure that your layer is selected in your Layers panel, and then hit Command-T. You can now use the little squares around your selection to resize your image by selecting them and dragging them. Hover your cursor outside the squares till you get a curved arrow. Now you can click and rotate your selection to any angle that you'd like. Once you have the size and angle that you want, just hit Enter. Now I'm going to show you how to add blur to your selection. This will enable you to match your added elements to the depth of field of your base image. Select the element you would like to edit and convert it to a smart object first. Now we're going to go up here to the top to Filter, Blur, and then Gaussian Blur. The higher the radius, the more out of focus my element becomes. Once you've reached the level of blur you like, hit OK. You can immediately see how much depth this added to my collection of butterflies. If you decide that you've added too much blur or not enough, you can always edit this. To edit, just click over here where it says Gaussian Blur underneath your layer. Now you can adjust your levels and hit OK. Photographs naturally have noise or grain. We want to make sure that our added elements have the same level of noise as our base photograph. To add noise to a layer, make sure it's converted to a smart object, and then go to Filter, Noise, and Add Noise. The further you drag your slider to the right, the more noise your layer will have. Do your best to match the level of noise from your base layer to your new added element. Once you're satisfied, hit OK. You can change the way that one of your elements is facing two different ways. If it's before you've converted that layer into a smart object, simply click on the layer, and then in your Properties panel up here at the top, you can click these left and right arrows to flip it horizontally or the up and down arrows to flip it vertically. If your layer is already converted to a smart object, then simply go to Edit, Transform, and then flip horizontal or vertical. To duplicate a layer, click on that layer and hit Command J. Now you have an additional element in your image. Now I'm going to show you how to add a shadow to your added element to help it blend into your base photograph. It's best to do this before you convert your layer into a smart object and add changes to it. Click on the layer you'd like to edit and hit Command J to duplicate it. We're going to Command or Control click on the image in our new layer to make a selection. Now we're going to fill our new selection with black. To do that, we're going to go to Edit, Fill, and for content, make sure you select black, and then hit OK. You can deselect your selection by hitting Command D. If we turn this layer off, we'll be able to see our original butterfly underneath it. We can now turn both of these layers into smart objects to continue. Now I'm going to transform the black butterfly to look like a shadow. Making sure that that layer is selected, I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and Distort. I can now use the surrounding boxes to distort the look of the black butterfly to look like a shadow. Make sure the direction of your shadow matches the direction of the light in your base photograph. Once you have the distortion that you like, hit Enter. We can now apply Gaussian blur and add noise to both our butterfly and its shadow to help it blend in with our scene. You can adjust the opacity of your shadow layer to make it more subtle. Just change the percentage up here next to the word opacity at the top of your layers palette. Drag the slider to the left to make it less opaque. Now we're going to change the color of one of our added elements. Make sure you've selected the layer you would like to edit, and then click up here on the word Adjustments. Now click the Hue Saturation icon. Now I can adjust the hue of my butterflies. If you only want this change to happen to the butterfly that you had selected, then right-click or control-click on the Hue Saturation layer mask above your layer and select Create Clipping Mask. Now these changes are only being made to the layer directly below it. Without this layer mask being clipped, these hue changes will be made to all of the layers below it, including my background layer. If you would like to make changes to only the butterflies on your image, drag the Hue Saturation layer mask to the very top of your layers. Now we're going to put all of our butterflies together in a group. This will allow us to clip the Hue Saturation layer mask to just that group. To create a group, select all the layers you want to be included. Hold down Shift while clicking on all the layers, or while still holding Shift, you can skip down to your last layer and it will select all the layers in between. Now you can right-click or control-click on the selected layers and select Group from Layers. I'm going to name this group Butterflies. Now if I control-click or right-click on my Hue Saturation layer mask and create a clipping mask from it, it only applies that hue saturation change to the group directly below it. My background is back to being unaffected, and I can now adjust my butterflies to make them any color I want. Click the arrow next to the folder of your new group to expand and see its contents. Once you've blended all of your added elements into your photograph, be sure to save it as a PSD. Then you'll be able to access all of your individual layers later on.